I'd almost forgotten what Chef can do with a steak.
Welcome to Sci-Fi Steak. This is the first video I'm doing about a Star Trek episode. Why am I starting with this one? Well, to be honest, I couldn't decide which one to take. Should I start with my favorite episode? With my least favorite episode? Chronological? Nah, that's all boring, like this episode is. And so I randomly chose one. Yeah, that was a great idea. I don't like this episode very much. It's great for a long evening when you can't sleep and need something to make you tired, but that's about it. So let's start. What happens in this episode? Aliens seem to be evil at first glance, but are only too stupid for experiments at the second. Our guys beam down to a planet because the star is about to go supernova. The outpost that is supposed to watch the sun doesn't answer, so of course our guys beam down without any security, because it's highly unlikely that something happened to them. They're probably just all drunk. However, the Enterprise is supposed to evacuate before the planet goes toast. The cleaning lady did an awesome job, really. Scotty calls to tell them that he has to leave because the Enterprise is sweating too much. But at least the television is working. I always hate conveniences like this. The camera is always exactly where it has to be to show us what happened. Especially in a case like this, when it wouldn't even be necessary to show us what happened. So we see the outpost guys get a bad headache and vanish. And by an enormous coincidence, right in that moment the same happens to our guys. Spock and Bones at least disappear with a bit of dignity, but Kirk, fully aware that a camera is behind him, does his best dying swan performance.
The highlight of the evening was definitely Catherine Janeway portraying the dying swan.
And for some reason, falling flat on his butt hurt his forehead. I guess he knows that a woman has to touch the injury later, and dropping his pants would not be appropriate. Well, at least not in front of Spock. Bones might not care, because he's seen Kirk naked before. After Space's Final Frontier, we are informed that this episode is about Deanna Troi, just without the
pain.
Thankfully. So, we are in a dark room and find a pretty lady lying there. Bones wants to rush over, saying she looks harmless, but Spock points out that harmless-looking things might suddenly attack. She wakes up and Kirk tries talking to her, but she doesn't answer. Bones finds out she's a mute.
His jaw's been fused.
Bones says it's not a bug, it's a feature. Her entire species is like that. So she must be telepathic. Then he decides to call her Jam, because that's better than hey you. Okay, he has a point there. Two big heads show up and order not to interfere. Kirk of course doesn't obey and gets knocked on his ass a second time. Kirk is just about to give a speech about the Prime Directive when they stop him by making the phasers disappear. Thanks for that. Seriously.
Beverly, the Prime Directive is not just a set of rules.
Then the aliens do some usual bad guy stuff, trap our guys in a force field and hurt Jem. Then they disappear, our guys are free again, and Kirk once again reminds us how badly he hurt his butt, his head. Jem takes a hint and starts transferring his wound to herself by touching him. And because he's so grateful, Kirk has nothing better to do than sticking his dirty finger into the wound. Bones, you're the doctor. Would you like to explain to him why that's not a good idea? Please? The wound then disappears, and Bones explains that this makes total sense. Because this is what empaths do. Sure. Spock says there's something interesting next door, and it's the missing outpost guys, and they do not look very good. After the dun-dun-dun, they find more tubes with their names on them. Why? Why did the aliens do that? Did they see that 3 more humans arrived and then first thing they did was put up more tubes? I'm sure they can put up another tube in a matter of seconds when someone dies. So did they do this just to scare them?
I'm afraid.
One of the big heads shows up and Spock nerve pinches him. Our guys walk out, but the big head only faked to be unconscious. Very sneaky. They reach the surface, and Scotty's already there waiting for them, waving happily. Kirk sees that the aliens are watching them, and instead of running away with the others, he runs towards them. First, why? What does he think he could accomplish? Except humiliate himself. And second, why are the aliens now going into slow motion mode? I mean, it's funny to watch, don't get me wrong, but what's the reason for that? Really? Just when Spock and Bones reach them, Scotty and his red shirts disappear. Jem then turns into Lassie when she tries to tell them that Kirk needs help. The bad guys, meanwhile, enjoy watching Kirk's performance a little longer and then inform him that they only need one of them. They want Kirk. Well, of course they do. Who wouldn't? The others are of course not happy with that, but Kirk orders them to leave. They do, and vanish. When Kirk is upset about it, the bad guys just say, "Don't worry, they're safe." Sure, we'll take your word for it. When Kirk gets more and more angry, they fall in love with him even harder. This whole sequence is so incredibly dull. From the moment they reach the surface until this moment, even though there's a lot of running back and forth, it's so boring to watch, really. Meanwhile, on the Enterprise, Sulu suggests that the landing party might be in trouble, and Scotty proves that years of space travel have taught him nothing at all. He just says they'll be fine, because when has it ever happened before that in a way mission went wrong, right?
I don't plan on spending our entire trip tied up in a basement.
Then we see Kirk hanging from the ceiling, getting tortured. And for some reason also his stuntman. I'm not sure what that poor guy did wrong to deserve this. Kirk asks about the two outpost guys, but the big heads deny to have killed them. Their own fears did.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
After they got bored with Kirk, they throw him back to Spock and Bones, and now Jem is supposed to help him, and of course she does. This knocks her out, and Bones looks at her and says, "Don't worry, this is normal. This is what empaths do." Really, is it? I mean, did I miss something? Troy is an empath, right? Why can't she do that? This is really irritating. Spock then tries to share an observation and gets interrupted by Bones asking why he has to be so analytical. And right he is, really. The last thing you would want to do when you're captured by aliens is to analyze a situation to get out of it. Spock thinks that he can hack that little device when the big heads come back. They want Kirk to choose who to hang up next. Bones is more likely to die, but Spock would almost for sure go insane. And we really do not need that.
What is this?
After the dun-dun-dun, they discuss who should be sacrificed. Bones drugs Kirk. And when Kirk is asleep, Spock says, "Well done, now I can make the decision." And of course he is going to choose himself. Bones is not happy. I gotta admit, I love this scene. Spock is looking at Kirk and then realizes that Jem is watching. It's a great reaction. That he was caught being so obviously worried about his friend makes him really uncomfortable. Bones is very determined to go into the torture chamber and drugs Spock as well. Well, be careful what you praise people for. They might do the same to you, and then it's not funny anymore. And now Spock says it's highly unethical, because now it's him. So they take McCoy away and he gets to keep his shirt on. I'm not sure if that is to spare him or to spare us. Meanwhile, Kirk and Spock are awake again, and Spock explains that he has to do the tech to achieve tech. Kirk just says, "Stop boring me and do it already." Spock succeeds, and Kirk declares that things are now about to get offensive. And I fully agree. I can't help but wonder, how did Bones' clothes get this torn? What exactly did they do to him? Whip him or something? I'm getting some really, really weird images in my head here. I mean, what's a duck? However, while I'm still recovering from 50 Shades of McCoy, Bones is pretty boned. He is going to die unless Jem helps him. Kirk and Spock want to get Jem to help, but the big heads don't want that. They don't want her to be urged or forced. Okay, I guess they can't force her, but they can still urge her. She can hear them. And now the aliens explain their entire plan. They can save one planet, and they are trying to decide which one. And if Jem proves herself worthy, they will save hers. So they decided to pick one person to judge an entire species. I hope there will never be a supernova threatened to destroy Earth, and these aliens randomly pick one of us. In that case, we might be really, really screwed. Did they test the other planets already? Did the 2 outpost guys die in a test with one of the other species? To me, it almost seems as if the big heads want Jem to pass. Did they put as much effort into the other tests? But however, since she heard all this, you ruined your plan, guys. She now knows that she is definitely going to die if she does nothing. Even if she survives for now by not helping McCoy, she will then later die when her planet gets roasted. She knows that if she tries to help Bones, she has at least a tiny chance of survival. This is now a no-brainer and will tell you nothing about her willingness to sacrifice herself. Take this conversation into the next room if you want your little experiment uninfluenced. So of course she's helping McCoy now. And the big heads are fascinated. For no reason. She knows that the stakes are high. But the pain is getting too much, and the aliens are disappointed when she stops, saying she has not yet the instinct to save her people. Only that it has nothing to do with instinct now, since you told her the plan. She's just in a lot of pain.
Pain.
Inside the force field, Spock tells Kirk to stop overacting, since the field is drawing energy from them. So they relax and Spock escapes, disarming the bad guys. Kirk demands that the big heads save Bones, but they refuse. He then gives a speech about love and compassion. And the Kirk speech works. The aliens save McCoy, and it seems they have also decided to save Jem's planet. So happy end? Except that obviously no one is bothered by the fact that the other planets are still about to be destroyed. But what else is new? Back on the Enterprise, they discuss Jem and how awesome she is. And of course they can't resist to make fun of Spock for not valuing human emotions as much as the big heads. But as always, Spock has a perfect answer for that.
I shall certainly give the thought all the consideration it is due.
Yeah, as I said, this was pretty boring. Also, that the big heads ruin their own plan annoys me. In the end, they didn't judge her on her instincts, but on her ability to listen and put 2 and 2 together. I know the lesson of the episode is supposed to be that compassion is good, but the real message is that you shouldn't let your guinea pigs eavesdrop when you explain your experiments. Although I do like that the bad guys at least wanted to save a species from extinction. That's a lot more than the Federation would do.
Well, this is one for the books.
If you want to see a far, far better video about the Empath, you should visit SF Debris on sfdebris.com. I'm a big fan of his work. He's awesome. You should take a look. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you liked it. And if you want to tell me if you agree or disagree, please write it in the comments. See you next time here on Sci-Fi Steak. Bye.
Goodbye, Harry.